Hi my friends, in today's video we are going to discuss about vital signs. Vital signs, the name itself implies it is the vital area in clinical examination. Why I am saying this? If we find any abnormality in vital signs, we have to pay medical attention immediately. Usually the medical students write vital signs under general examination. In Siddha case sheets, what we are doing, we incorporate vital signs in between case history and general examination. The vital signs include body temperature, pulse rate, respiratory rate, and blood pressure. Nowadays, we started writing blood oxygen saturation in COVID-19 situation. Then we also include body mass index under vital signs. Let us see the vital signs one by one in detail. Okay, let me share my slides. Case sheet vital signs. The first one is the pulse rate or heart rate. You count the pulse for 1 minute. Normal pulse rate or heart rate should be in between 72 to 80 beats per minute. Please keep it in mind. Pulse rate will vary from 60 to 100 depending upon the activity in healthy individual. So we should take the normal limit as 60 to 100 beats per minute. Then what is tachycardia and what is bradycardia? When pulse rate exceeds 100 beats per minute is called tachycardia. If it counts below 60 per minute, then it is called bradycardia. Pulse can be measured at any place where there is a large artery, like radial artery, ulnar artery, brachial artery in hand, femoral artery, posterior tibial artery, dorsalis pedis artery, popliteal artery in leg, abdominal aorta in abdomen, apex beat of the heart in the chest, facial artery, superficial temporal artery, posterior auricular artery in face, and the carotid artery in the neck. This is purely modern based concept. Ancient Siddha also documented 10 sites of pulsation in a 4 lines poem. Tadu Muregelu, Tanita Kudichandudu, Oduru Gamiyam, Undi Nedumarbu, Kadu Nedumuku, Kandam Karam Puruvam, Poduru Muchi, Pugarpatum Partide. The poem deals with arteries like posterior tibial artery, femoral artery, abdominal aorta, apex beat, superficial temporal artery, maxillary artery, branch of external carotid artery, and radial artery. From this poem, we could appreciate the excellence of our ancient Siddhas in their medical knowledge. Arteries, whatever it may be, for our convenience, we count pulse rate by palpating radial artery, just proximal to the patient's wrist on the thumb side. Then let us see, what are all the things to be analyzed in pulse? Pulse should be analyzed for rate, rhythm, volume, character, presence or absence of radiofemoral delay, and examined for pulse deficit. Let us see the reasons for tachycardia. Number 1, if there is an increased demand for the oxygen, there will be an increased pulse rate. For example, physical exercise, travel to high altitude, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, anemia, pregnancy, etc. Number 2, if there is an increased metabolic rate in the conditions like hyperthyroidism, fever, etc., there will be tachycardia. Number 3, if there is a disturbance at a psychological aspect like fear, anxiety, hyperexcitability, there will be an increased pulse rate. Number 4, lifestyle changes. Changes like smoking and the consumption of alcohol may increase pulse rate. Number 5, cardiac conditions like valvular heart disease, cardiac arrhythmia may increase pulse rate. Number 6, drug-induced tachycardia is also there during the administration of adrenaline and atropine. Let us see the reasons for bradycardia. Bradycardia will be seen in athletes during sleep, the persons who are taking beta blockers or calcium channel blockers or narcotics, AV block in the heart, and raised intracranial pressure. Next one is rhythm. You have to examine whether the patient has got regular rhythm or irregular rhythm. If it is irregular, then you should assess whether it is regularly irregular or irregularly irregular. Regularly irregular means intermittent dropping out of pulse, but regular in manner. This will be happening in second degree heart block. Irregularly irregular means irregular dropping out of pulse, that is particularly seen in atrial fibrillation and in conduction abnormalities. Next one is volume. Volume is nothing but the degree of expansion of the artery during systole and diastole. Volume is otherwise known as amplitude. What are all the factors are deciding pulse volume? It is decided by two factors. Number one, cardiac output or stroke volume. Number two, peripheral resistance, which means resistance offered by blood vessels against blood flow. If so, when the volume is increased, when stroke volume increases and the peripheral resistance reduces. When the volume is reduced, vice versa, when stroke volume reduces and the peripheral resistance increases. Let us see some examples for increased volume and decreased volume. Volume is increased in anxiety, emotions, exercise, aortic incompetence, fever, anemia, thyrotoxicosis, etc. Decrease in pulse volume could be expected in mitral stenosis, aortic stenosis, left ventricular failure, congestive cardiac failure, shock, etc. Next one is character. First, we should know the character of a normal pulse. It has three qualities: rapid rise, rounded top, and steep fall. Then we can have a look on abnormal pulses. Number one, anacrotic pulse. This is a slow rising pulse of smaller in amplitude and delayed peak. It is nowadays called as pulsus tardus. This is seen in aortic stenosis, in which there is a delay in ejection and a reduction in the pressure in the aorta. That is due to reduced cardiac output or stroke volume. Number two, water hammer pulse or collapsing pulse or Corrigan's pulse. This type of pulse strikes the palpating finger with a rapid and forceful jerk and quickly disappears. It is a large bounding pulse associated with increased stroke volume, as in the case of aortic incompetence. Number three, pulsus bispherians. It is a double peak pulse. You can feel twice beating pulse. Both the waves are felt only during systole. It is seen in combined form of aortic stenosis and aortic incompetence. Number four, dicrotic pulse. It is also a twice beating pulse, very similar to pulsus bispherians. The only difference is in dicrotic pulse, one beat will be felt in systole and the other beat in diastole. Beats will be separated by an accentuated normal dicrotic notch. This type of a pulse is seen in congestive cardiac failure, dilated cardiomyopathy, and fever like typhoid fever. Number five, pulsus alterans. It is characterized by a strong and weak beat occurring alternately due to the alteration of stroke volume, as in the case of congestive cardiac failure and dilated cardiomyopathy. The last one, pulsus paradoxus. Here, the volume of a pulse decreases during inspiration and increases during expiration. This is seen in asthma, pericardial effusion, and shock. Next one, radiofemoral delay. How to identify the delay? Very simple. You have to palpate radial artery and femoral artery simultaneously and assess the nature of the pulse. Radiofemoral delay is, of course, a rare condition in which there is a delay in femoral pulse as compared to radial pulse. Both pulsation are not synchronized. This is typically seen in coarctation of aorta, a congenital defect. Co-artition of aorta is nothing but a narrowing of aorta just below the origin of left subclavian artery. Then moving to pulse deficit. Normally, heart rate and pulse rate will be the same. In certain cases, pulse deficit will be there. Means there is a difference between heart rate and pulse rate. Yeah, heart rate and pulse rate is not equal. It is due to non-conduction of weak cardiac pulse to peripheral pulse. It is a confirmatory test for atrial fibrillation. Then how to elicit pulse deficit? Pulse deficit is determined by simultaneous palpation of radial artery and auscultation of heart apex. If deficit is there, then count pulse rate and heart rate separately for 1 minute. Next entity is respiratory rate. Respiratory rate is counted by watching the movements of abdomen and chest wall. Some doctors will place their hands on the abdomen to count the respiratory rate. One point you should know, the patient should be unaware of that the respiratory rate is being counted. It is better to count the respiratory rate while palpating the radial pulse. Normal respiratory rate is 12 to 20 breaths per minute. If respiratory rate is greater than 20, it will be called as tachypnea. When respiratory rate is lower than 12, then it is termed as bradypnea. Bradypnea is uncommon and usually seen in head injury, brain tumor, and narcotic poisoning. Tachypnea, which is commonly seen in certain conditions, hypoxia due to COPD, physiological conditions like exercise, psychological conditions like tension, anxiety, metabolic acidosis, fever, anemia, congestive cardiac failure, etc. Respiratory rate should be counted in terms of breath per minute. Next entity is temperature. Fever is nothing but elevated body temperature as a result of exposure to pyrogens. Usually we use glass thermometer or electronic thermometer to measure temperature. The tip of the thermometer is kept under tongue and mouth is closed. After 1 minute, we remove the thermometer from the mouth and read the temperature. Then we are going to see what is normal temperature and what is a diurnal variation. Normal temperature of human body is exactly 98.6 degree Fahrenheit or 37.1 degrees centigrade. But we feel slight variation in body temperature in daytime normally. The normal diurnal variation is 1 degree Fahrenheit. So normal limit of body temperature is fixed as 98 to 99 degree Fahrenheit. We can measure body temperature by keeping thermometer in axilla or armpit in certain conditions. Usually, axillary temperature is 1 degree Fahrenheit lesser than the oral temperature. If we are documenting body temperature with the axillary reading, we should add 1 degree Fahrenheit. Sometimes rectal temperature will be taken. Example, cholera. Usually rectal temperature is 1 degree Fahrenheit higher than the oral temperature. So from the rectal temperature reading, we have to subtract 1 degree Fahrenheit and record the body temperature. Next important thing regarding fever is grades of fever. 98 to 99 degree Fahrenheit is considered as normal temperature. If the reading is in between 99 to 100 degree Fahrenheit, that is known as mild fever. 100 degree to 103 degree Fahrenheit, moderate fever. 103 to 105 degree Fahrenheit, high fever. When it exceeds 105 degree Fahrenheit, then it is called as hyperpyrexia. When the temperature reduces the normal limit, I mean in between 95 to 98 degree Fahrenheit, it is called as subnormal temperature. When it reduces below 95 degrees Fahrenheit, then it will be termed as hypopyrexia. Next, we are going to have a look on types of fever, particularly continuous fever, remittent fever, intermittent fever, hectic fever, and Bell-Epstein type of fever. Continuous fever means temperature remains above normal throughout a day and does not fluctuate more than 1 degree centigrade in 24 hours. Example, typhoid, infective endocarditis, urinary tract infection, and pneumonia. Remittent fever. The patient will be having continuous fever and the temperature fluctuate more than 1 degree centigrade but does not touch the baseline in 24 hours. Example, typhoid, infective endocarditis, etc. This type of fever is more common in clinical practice. Then intermittent fever. The temperature will be present only for few hours in a day and remits to normal for the remaining hours. Yes, the temperature touches the baseline in between. The intermittent fever may appear daily, quotidian, or on alternate days, tertian, and on every third day, quartan. Quotidian fever, this occurs every 24 hours. Tertian fever, this occurs every 48 hours. Quartan fever, this occurs every 72 hours. Some classical examples are malaria fever, Kala-Azar, septicemia, and pyemia. Then hectic fever. Hectic fever, particularly in septic conditions. These are recurrence of fever which last from few days to few weeks and are separated by symptom-free intervals. Then last one, Bell-Epstein type of fever. There is a regular alteration of recurrent bouts of fever and afebrile periods. The temperature may take 3 days to rise, remain high for 3 days, remits over 3 days, and followed by apyrexia for 9 days. The classical example is Hodgkin lymphoma. Next entity is blood pressure. Blood pressure, it is decided by two factors, cardiac output and peripheral resistance. Normal blood pressure is 120 by 80 mmHg. 120 is the systolic pressure and 80 is the diastolic pressure. One more pressure is there, pulse pressure. Pulse pressure means the difference between systolic and diastolic pressure. It shall be within 30 to 60 mmHg in normal conditions. Usually BP increases when the age advances. Due to this reason, we consider as normal blood pressure when it reads in between 100 by 60 and 140 by 90. So it is very clear, systolic pressure, the normal range is 100 to 140 mmHg, and diastolic pressure, the normal range is 60 to 90 mmHg in normal conditions. In patients, if the blood pressure reads below 100 by 60, then it is called hypotension. When it exceeds 140 by 90, then it is called hypertension. We should be very alert about malignant hypertension when it reads above 180 by 120. They require immediate medical attention to reduce BP. Otherwise, it may lead to a lot of complications like papilledema, retinal hemorrhage and blindness, hypertensive nephropathy, hypertensive encephalopathy, intracranial hemorrhage and stroke, myocardial infarction, left ventricular failure, pulmonary edema, dissecting aneurysm, etc. For measuring blood pressure, nowadays doctors started using digital aneroids instead of sphygmomanometer. The instruments, whatever it may be, the normal limits are the same. When measuring blood pressure, we should follow certain rules. We have to tell the patient what we are going to do. We should make the patient more comfort and more relaxed. We have to ask the patient to keep a sitting posture or lying posture. Tie the cuff 2 to 3 centimeters above the elbow joint. Make sure that the center of the cuff should be lying over the brachial artery. This is very important. Patient's hand should be positioned to ensure that the cuff remains at the level of the heart. By palpating the radial pulse by one hand and inflate the cuff by the other hand. Continue inflation till the pressure in the cuff is sufficient to obliterate the pulse and further raise it to 20 to 30 mm Hg above that level. Keep the stethoscope over the brachial artery at the anterior aspect of the elbow. Release the pressure in the cuff as slowly as possible, 1 to 2 divisions at a time, till the Korotkov sound is heard. That corresponds to systolic pressure. Continue the deflation of the cuff till disappearance of the sound. Note the reading that corresponds to diastolic pressure. Then release complete air and untie the cuff. Let us see the classification of hypertension. I am going to explain with a reference to Joint National Committee report on prevention, detection, evaluation, and treatment of high BP. Normal BP is notified as 120 systolic and 80 diastolic. The pre-hypertensive state denotes the systolic pressure shall be in between 120 to 139 and the diastolic pressure in between 80 to 89 mmHg. When do we call hypertension? In hypertension, there are two stages, stage 1 and stage 2. Stage 1, the systolic pressure should be within 140 to 159 range. The diastolic pressure should be within 90 to 99 range. Then stage 2, systolic pressure should be above 160 and diastolic pressure should be above 100. Let me brief some of the common causes for developing hypertension. 85% of hypertensives belongs to essential or primary hypertension category. Remaining patients will fall in the category of secondary hypertension. Yes, in secondary hypertension, we can able to say the definite cause like renal failure, aldosteronism, pheochromocytoma, etc. In essential or primary or idiopathic hypertension, we cannot say the definite reason. A number of factors are there to increase blood pressure. Some common factors are obesity, insulin resistance, high alcohol intake, high salt intake, sodium intake, low potassium intake, low calcium intake, aging, sedentary lifestyle, stress, genetic reasons, etc. The last entity is body mass index. Assessment of body mass index is also very important because it relates to the current development of health issues at many occasions. For calculating body mass index, we should know the height of the patient in terms of meter and the weight in terms of kilogram. If so, we could calculate body mass index by applying a formula, that is, we have to divide weight in kilogram by height in meter square. We will get a figure. If the figure falls in between 18.5 to 24.9, that is normal. 25 to 29.9, overweight. 30 to 34.9, grade 1 obesity. 35 to 39.9, grade 2 obesity. Above 40, extremely obese. If it is below 18.5, that condition is known as underweight. My dear friends, as far as vital signs are concerned, you should remember only few things. How to count the pulse rate very systematically, what is radiofemoral delay, what is pulse deficit, how to count the respiratory rate, how to measure body temperature, what are all the different grades of fever, different types of fever, what are all the rules to be followed in measuring blood pressure, how to calculate body mass index. Please do remember. With all these words, I conclude today's presentation. Let us meet again in the video on general examination.